Hello and welcome back to 67 Hail Hail for another reaction show. It's myself, John, hosting tonight. Hamish is in Leipzig, as you know. He was in Germany tonight watching Celtic be beaten 3-1 by RB Leipzig. A lot of raw emotions after that, I'm feeling like, getting a sense of that from looking elsewhere and looking a bit at the chat tonight. Asim, how are you feeling? Are you feeling raw? What's your, immediate assessment, your honest assessment of what you just witnessed?
Yeah, it's always difficult right in the aftermath. Obviously, there's a lot of kind of emotions, and you don't want to be too reactionary. But ultimately, the feeling of kind of deflation and just kind of gutted. It feels like we've seen it's the same old story, in terms of we've watched this happen and it constantly kind of repeating itself, where we shoot ourselves in the foot. And it's just that feeling of what could have been again. Ultimately, I think we deserve to lose, but it's key moments in games, and it feels like we're just making the same mistakes game in, game out at this level, which you've seen we'll get punished for. So, yeah, gutted, deflated, but it's like I said to you off air as well. It feels like we've seen this story before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't feel like something that's come completely out of the blue, to be perfectly honest with you. I totally agree with your assessment. I thought Leipzig deserved to win the game overall, but the frustrations creep in because I actually felt we were fairly in the game in that first half. I know we went into the interval 1-0 down, but we created a few chances. I know they did as well. It was a kind of competitive end-to-end match at that point, for much of it, and kind of managed to hang with them for the majority of that first half, I would say, or large chunks of it at least. Then immediately coming out, getting the goal, and at 1-1, you're thinking, this is on here. Can Celtic build into the game from here? And it just kind of unravelled from there, Asim.
Yeah.
That's what frustrates me more than anything on these nights, is the way sometimes it just unravels, and that's football. What for you? Did you spot like a main issue that was the problem tonight, or not beating around the bush here, but did the game hinge on that big error from Joe Hart?
Not necessarily, but once you've done well to get back into the game and you're back at one each, and as you say, you've got that momentum. The fact that it's also the fact that we've got away with a couple of good decisions that have gone in our favour tonight. With obviously the first one, if it's offside, it's offside. But the second one, especially, that can go either way. The one with the offside, where the player ducked in front of Joe Hart, to then shoot yourself in the foot, literally. I think it was from that direct kickoff. That's just unforgivable at this level, John, and that's the frustrating thing. But if we're talking in the bigger picture, there were glaring kind of deficiencies, I thought, throughout the game. There were positives as well, which we'll obviously touch on, but it just feels we're far too open. And I don't want to get at there's always this debate about and changing. It's not even about that for me, because it's not one extreme or the other. It's not about changing your style, but the midfield was far too open. I felt we were exposed. We're chasing, like, in the first half. Within the first 10 minutes, there was two or three times that they're through on goal, and all our midfield are chasing backwards just with one through ball. And for me, that's a worry, because that seems to be again a kind of common theme that we've got caught out in three or four of our goals in this group stage already.
Yeah, it was kind of two big moments that I felt like were indicative of that. Was when they kind of targeted McGregor to get him out of possession. Then they targeted Abogard when he came on, to get him out of possession as well. As soon as our DMs picked off, or our defensive midfielders picked off in their half, it just seems to be free reign on the Celtic defence. And obviously they're a team of high quality, high counter attacking quality, and I don't even know what the solution to that is. As you say, I don't think it's about changing approach or anything like that. It might be a case of having a different blend of midfielders in there.
Yeah.
Thought Matt O'Reilly, for whether or not it's the way he's been deployed at the moment, just thought he wasn't really in the match at all, and I maybe could have done with McGregor and Abogard starting that match, for example. I'm not saying that would have led to a result tonight. But I do get the concerns about that midfield. I think it did seem apparent tonight that, that away from home in Europe, I'm not sure we can hang with a team of Leipzig's quality, to be honest with you. And I do think Leipzig do have a lot of quality. I know they've had a topsy-turvy time in Bundesliga this season, but they've got a lot of individuals in that team, a lot of talent that are just too brutally efficient to expose a team that's going to give them so much space on the counter.
And it's also about kind of knowing your opponent. So they're obviously a very quick counter-attacking team, as we've seen tonight. I thought they looked a good side, but I almost felt we were playing into their hands by being caught so far, forward. And the amount of times they just had to play a through ball and they're in, and that is their strength. Playing that counter-attacking fast football. Whereas if we had, like you say, a blend potentially of, obviously in hindsight it's easier to say, but there was a lot of chat that people said beforehand, these are the games for Abelgard. And for a guy who's only just played so few minutes, I thought he did a few good things in that second half in terms of a lot of kind of interceptions. And him and maybe McGregor would offer more of that protection without sacrificing too much, because if you push McGregor a bit forward, he can still play and he can still get the ball moving. Like I say, hindsight, whether that would change the result, we don't know. But would it change the shape of how the game's going potentially for me? Yes, because I did feel that Matt O'Reilly was caught a lot further up the pitch a lot. You've got our Maeda and Jota in the first half as well. For me, it is something worth looking at, because these kind of teams will pick you off if we're playing that way. And it's just frustrating that we're so open. You watch teams in Europe sometimes, and they make it tough, and I just feel we don't make it tough. We don't make it a difficult game. That was an end-to-end watch. It was, for a neutral, it would have been exciting at times, but we're playing to their strengths, I thought, at times, and it just you're waiting for that goal to come.
Yeah, I mean, I think after the game like that, a lot of people they discussed what they would change, and
yeah,
I think for me in that first half, I don't think I would have changed too much at that point, because I did think Celtic were creating at least getting into opportunities, situations where they could exploit Leipzig, and I'm just wondering at Celtic Park, is that going to be a factor? I mean, I can't see Ange changing too much for the game next week, to be perfectly frank with you. I'm not saying that that's a good or a bad thing, but I can just see us kind of approaching the game the same way and hoping that we can find that bit of composure in the final third that seems to be lacking at this level at the moment. I mean, that was the big takeaway for me up until we actually did score, was that we just looked a bit panicky when we did get the balls in good areas, snatching at shots, playing passes far too quickly, or getting a rush of blow to the head type pattern in the final third. And I don't know if that improves, then it's just such a radically different game. I mean, how do you think we approach this next week now? Because looking at it, we need to win this game now against Leipzig when they come to Glasgow.
Yeah, in terms of the group, it's not a disaster still. Because of the fact that RB Leipzig lost to Shakhtar, it's really opened it up in terms of opportunities still for us to pick up points. Now we've got the 2 home games coming up. In terms of approach, you're right. And the midfield, I think it was more for me looking at it as an away game in Europe. It may have needed a different kind of blend in the midfield. Next week, I'd imagine we'll be on the front foot a lot more again. We'll have more of the ball, and it will probably be another end-to-end game, but you don't mind that when we've got the backing of the fans, and you can see how that might play in our favour. So personnel-wise next week, it depends as well with injuries, but it's not so much that I would change too much. It's the same old thing though that we've discussed throughout this group. If you're wasteful up front and they're not putting the chances away, you've seen that within 30 seconds they're up the other end, and they'll punish any mistakes. A slight loose touch from McGregor and they're in for their first goal, but that's on the back of us having our best spell with Kyogo's chance and Taylor's, and it's just frustrating that it seems that the lessons aren't being learned from that first game, and then the second game in Warsaw, which we all felt the same. Would that come back to haunt us? And again tonight, whilst we both agreed that they deserved the win, key moments, goals change games. If you take the lead, the momentum there, and again in the second half, once you've got to 1 each, you cannot just throw away goals the way we did. So it seems like it's more individual things rather than a massive overhaul of, as you said, small moments can change games. In terms of approach, it will be the same next week. We'll go again, and we'll just hope that this time we can be more clinical and cut out mistakes at the back.
Now, we would need to wait and see on the Callum McGregor situation. Quickly, just, if not everyone watches the game, sometimes they just see the reaction if they happen to miss the game. But it was a very, very end-to-end game in that first half, and Celtic had a number of chances. And, after putting a bit of pressure on Leipzig, forcing a few corners in a row, we actually conceded from our own corner. Asim, when, the ball kind of comes out to the edge of the box, played short. We had all our defenders up, And then it was just a bit of miscontrol from McGregor, who then didn't really do what he did against Motherwell
Yeah,
in terms of taking the man out and perhaps taking a yellow card this time. So that was a frustration. McGregor then goes down injured shortly after that, doesn't he? And
yeah,
we've not heard from Ange what that is, but it looked like some sort of knee injury, so we can only keep our fingers crossed that that isn't serious, because I think it would be a blow to. I know he's not, quite been at the top of his game over the last couple of weeks, but it would undoubtedly be a blow to us if he's going to be missing for any length of time. Obviously, suspended for the match of the weekend. How do you think Celtic cope with Abelgard coming into the team, kind of his first real sustained action, in a Celtic shirt? I know he came on against Motherwell, but this was a much bigger test for a much longer period. How did you feel, he got on, and, how do we cope with McGregor's absence now?
yeah. Despite McGregor's error for that, and he should have maybe brought I think he did try to bring the guy down, but it was maybe slightly too late. Despite that, I do think we suffered as a result of him going off. This, it's not a slight on Abelgard, as I mentioned earlier. I thought he did quite a few things quite well in terms of interceptions and just being there positionally. Maybe for their disallowed goal, he was a bit poor, but considering how few minutes he's had, I think there's scope for encouragement that he could be an effective player, especially in games like this. But I think the team as a whole suffered without McGregor in the second half, because, as you mentioned, in the first half it seemed like we could still get at them, and we were still having spells where we were keeping it, and McGregor just brings that composure, and he's that constant bounce ball that you can give it to, and he'll rotate it side to side, back and forth. So I think we struggled with that second half. I don't think, despite the goal, we didn't really have any concerted spell of possession. So I worry about that. Even just in terms of leadership, you look in the second half, it was a lot of different players, but without Carter Vickers and McGregor, it's almost a spine in terms of leadership, and obviously usually Joe Hart as well, but he seems to be in a bit of bad form right now, and I didn't feel at any spell once they got to 2-1 we looked like coming back in it, and a lot of that for me is when McGregor's not on the pitch, we do seem to struggle with that fluency, and we'll see what I think. Abelgard, yeah, I think he can be used effectively, but I don't think it's fair to judge him just on tonight on the second half, because I think as a team we struggled when McGregor went off.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation for him to come into. I actually thought we responded to their first goal pretty well, and at least didn't completely collapse in the manner that we did in the second half. Managed to bring it into half time, and you're thinking there's a lot to play for here, and showed that immediately. I mean, it was a great goal. Hatate doing some brilliant midfield work, kind of winning the ball back, immediately releasing Kyogo, and then we finally found that bit of calmness and composure that we've been lacking at that end of the park. Kyogo had to play in Jota. You didn't want him to snatch at a shot, and he coolly picks him out, and Jota couldn't really miss, but at the same time, kept his own composure to stick it away. What was your feelings at that point? I mean, at that point, I'm thinking, we're in here. We could get a good result here to bring back to Celtic Park and the rest of the group.
Yeah, that's the thing. When Kyogo was through, you're just like let's not waste this opportunity again. And the fact that it reminded me of the Leverkusen goal last season when Jota kind of passed it across the goal like that as well. At that point, you're right. I'm thinking, okay, it's quite early in the second half, and the momentum we can get from that, and it seemed to knock the stuffing potentially out of them. But I didn't feel like we took that on and gained the ascendancy from that, which was disappointing. I felt they responded quite well to it and seemed like the more likely team, and they had a couple of chances even before they got their eventual second one. So that was a frustration. You just wanted a slight shift at that point, and you wanted us to have a bit more momentum and a bit more pressure on them, having got the equaliser and got yourself back in the game, and it didn't come. I thought Maida could have came off a lot sooner, personally. He's obviously not having a great spell of things. I don't know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I felt all the subs were a bit late, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm obviously unsure how it would have played out had the subs been made earlier, but I just thought the substitutions were made a little bit late to kind of, impact the direction of the game. Perhaps, some players could have had a bit more time. I mean, for me, I know we're talking about all this kind of big picture stuff about the midfield, etc. And I asked you earlier, does the match hinge on one moment? And I think that Joe Hart moment, I think if he doesn't make that mistake, then we're talking about a completely different result here, because I think that just sucked everything out of Celtic at that
Yeah,
point. I mean, we're riding the high of that VAR decision,
yeah,
which, as you say, looked a little bit harsh on Leipzig in some ways, in that, Shabalai took a bull of a shot, a real roasting shot right past Hart, and it was ruled out offside because a player was deemed to be, in Joe Hart's vision. But I don't think if that player wasn't there that Hart is saving that by any means at all. So I think we kind of got away with one there. But
yeah.
as soon as I could get the words "we got away with one" out of my mouth, then Hart makes just a complete, shocker of a pass. A real goal that only Celtic could concede away from home in Europe. And it was a shame because, you talk about leadership, he's wearing the captain's armband at that point.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to make a pass like that. It wasn't like he was under pressure.
No.
It just seemed to be a massive mental blip. And the shame about it is that outside of that complete, error, I thought Hart actually had a fairly decent game overall. He was quick out to a lot of balls, and I made a couple of saves. And then, he just has a moment like that, which understandably overshadows, all the other rest of the good work he did, because you just can't make a mistake. And he'll be the first, I think he'll be the first to say that that's just not good enough, especially at that level. You just can't make a mistake like that and give the ball to a player like that in that position with the quality they have.
100%. I agree. He made quite a few good saves, and I had no qualms with his performance. Otherwise, some people were saying maybe slow to come out, or came out too quick almost for the first one as well. But psychology is such a big thing in football. You've got that relief of the second VAR decision going in your favour. That naturally will give us a boost. You've seen the crowd were celebrating it like a goal. Our own players must have felt, right, we're a few things are going in our favour here. This could be our night. Their fans and players likewise must be like, right, how this is another one that's gone against us. To do that within 10-15 seconds is it was unforgivable in my eyes. For such an experienced player, you just don't do that. There has to be a bit of game management. You've got away with one. That's just like, there's no explanation for it. It was like you said, no one on him. There's no one on the players that he was trying to play. It was quite an easy pass he could have made, and to try and do a through, almost a splitting pass, it was just, and it sucked the life out of the players and probably all the supporters watching, that you just felt it from that moment onwards. I didn't feel that we were going to get back into it. Just was the sudden shift in momentum and their confidence from that, having got away with one.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And I think there was just no way we were going to get back into the game at that point. I mean, I think that was around the 64th minute, so there was still half an hour left, and I actually felt for the last half an hour, I think that's when the poor performance creeps in, and when it becomes really disappointing, because I actually thought we were pretty poor after that. I'm talking like, we did pretty all right for an hour, I would suggest, and then we were really poor after the mistake. Now, obviously, that's not entirely Joe Hart's fault. The players have to take a collective responsibility to kind of respond to that kind of error and go at Leipzig again. But they were just in full control at that point, and kind of the third goal in the end looked almost inevitable. And it was a real quality goal from them, right over the top, and finished really accurately and ruthlessly again. And we're just missing that ruthless edge at this level, unfortunately. We're a pot 4 team. We're playing away from home. We feel like we can get something out of the game, but I just think we don't really have that confidence or have that, absolutely, incisive ability to put away a team that has the quality of Leipzig at the moment. And the hope is that we do for this game coming up in Glasgow, because the group really is still in the balance in many ways. I know a lot of people will be writing us off after tonight, and you can understand that in many ways. We've got 1 point from 3 matches, but we're still, have a lot of this in our own destiny in a way. If we win the next 2 matches at home against Leipzig and Shakhtar, and, hope that Real Madrid are taking care of business elsewhere, we're still in the hunt in this group, aren't we? And, always not lost in a way. It feels kind of silly to say that, because tonight did feel like a draining performance and result, but there's still a lot to play for in this group.
Yeah, I think, there's a natural kind of deflated feeling after that tonight, but in the bigger picture, in terms of the group, you win next week. I know it's a big ask, but we said at the start of the group that the home games will be crucial, and we've seen we can compete in all 3 games. We've competed for large spells of the game, so it's not been one of those groups where we're not in it. the frustration just has been in both ends of the pitch, where we're just not being clinical and making silly mistakes. But a win next week, John, will most likely put us second at that stage, because I'd hope Real Madrid will beat Shakhtar. I don't know what the score is at the moment, but if they beat Shakhtar tonight and we win next week at home to Leipzig, and Real Madrid again take care of Shakhtar, the chances are we'll be sitting second on 4 points as well, with then the Shakhtar game to go the following week. Obviously, don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but 2 wins will pretty much could knock out Shakhtar in terms of the race. And then it depends what Leipzig are doing as well. So the group is still there for us. It just needs us to really find that big performance in Europe that we've not had yet. We've had spells, we've had decent performances in moments, but a full 90 minutes where we're clinical and ruthless, that's what's missing. And we played Leipzig a few years ago in a back-to-back and we lost away, and then turned them over the following week, and obviously completely different squads, teams and situations. But at that point I remember losing in Leipzig and thinking the group was done, because I think we'd picked up only 3 points as well at that stage and out of the 6, and we ended up going through that year ahead of Leipzig. So no, there's still a lot to go, a long way to go in this group, and in the way the fixtures have fallen, this is now our 2 most winnable games coming up. And yeah, it's just down to us to actually put that into practice. I know we've said it for the last 3 games, but I'm still hopeful that we can find that big performance.
You just hope as well that it doesn't suck confidence from the players, because I think maybe tonight's, nights like this can do that in a way. The good news is, Asim, that Real Madrid are 1-0 up already on Shakhtar tonight. So Rodrigo scored after 13 minutes. There's 17 minutes gone in that game, so hopefully they can finish that on. Just to close off here, I'm going to bring in some comments here, because I know there's a lot of feelings out there. There's a lot of people's stuff want to get off their chest, both good and bad. I'm struggling to find too many positives on tonight, to be quite honest with you. I'm quite down after that, just in the way I feel, just to be perfectly honest with everyone. But I do accept that there is still plenty to play for in the rest of the group. There's a comment here from Jim Duncan saying they were a quality side. If we were firing on all cylinders, we might have stood a chance. Still a chance in the group. And with CCV back, I think we'll see a big shift in confidence. I wonder if he will be a key to kind of helping us find our mojo and giving us kind of a solid base. I think sometimes people are tempted to maybe put too much on a player's absence. I don't know if CCV is going to be a magic bullet for us, but do you think he will add a bit of stability that even helps the midfield kind of get their own foothold in the game, Asim?
There's a couple of things with CCV. I think he's good at bringing the ball out, and Jens today in the first half with 2 or 3 passes, he gave them the ball and they're straight in the final third, and it's sloppy things like that, which is typical of us, kind of sometimes shooting ourselves in the foot. I thought Welsh was actually a positive tonight. I thought he handled himself quite well, and with CCV, he's just a calming influence, which you'd like to think will improve us, and it might, just in terms of the whole back line, just give us a bit more confidence. I'm like you as well, that tonight was a real kind of downer, but I'm just hopeful that the player, because we've maybe had a couple of poor performances prior to that as well, it just feels like we need a big one now to lift us again, because I think there's too many players off form, the likes of Maida, O'Reilly, Jota again wasn't at his best tonight. We just need these players to really get that form back that gives us the confidence going forward.
Comment from Evan Moore here. Need to put some perspective to this. Best 2 centre-backs are out and Cal McGregor goes early. To compete in Champions League, you need all your best players playing away as well. So I could see why a lot of people will be feeling that way and trying to put it into some sort of perspective. Just for balance, I've got a comment from Sugarman here saying tonight's result was sadly also predictable. Leipzig targeted our small fullbacks, dominated the midfield, far too open for Champions League football. It's naive and extreme. There is a lot of feelings like that going around too. So, personally, I don't think we need to change too much. I don't think we need a complete root and branch upheaval of the way Celtic play. I don't think there needs to be a big, inquisition on tonight's result. You're just hoping that the individuals can do better, as you say. I'm just looking for a few more good comments here. 2 seconds. Yeah,
I think there is an argument.
Yeah,
sorry. I was just
Yeah,
going to say, I think
no,
there is an argument for me watching that game. I know the goal that we gave away was a key moment, but I didn't ever feel secure in that match. That we were really kind of comfortable defensively. I just felt at so many different spells they looked like they could hurt us any time they were going forward. I just felt we did look too open. They're a good side, but that for me is a worry. If we're looking too open, in all these games that we're playing, we will most likely get punished. And as you mentioned, I don't think it needs a big overhaul in style and change, but I think we do need to look at the opponents as well, and sometimes maybe find some kind of balance and tailor certain things, not to take away from our attacking threat. But if the other opposition have got a lot more of the ball and are finding a way through every time, I do feel that there can be some tweaks.
Don Quadrado saying we're fourth seeds trying to punch above our weight in the group. Next week is a must win now. I don't think there's any arguments there. And, I think if we have any ambitions at all, we need to beat Leipzig next week at Celtic Park, and that'll be a test in itself. M. Young saying failure to beat Shakhtar last month, looking like it may come back to haunt us, as third in group would be acceptable as at this stage of team development. I think third in the group is very much still up for grabs with the games we've got left, and hopefully that that's the least we're aiming for. But still a lot of football to be played before then as well. We can't take anything for granted here, and really need to push up. JJ, Maeda, Jota, and O'Reilly have all dipped in form. Says Mike, how are you feeling about just form in general, Asim? Because it seems a long time ago since we absolutely thumped Rangers 4-0 and everyone was riding on the crest of a wave. And, a lot would argue there's been, positive and negative results since then. But, you would argue that perhaps we haven't been at our best since that match. Are you a bit concerned this is kind of dragging on for a few weeks now, a few matches?
Yeah, initially the St Mirren game, it seemed like, okay, it was potentially just a blip, a one-off, but it does seem to have dragged. I think the postponements and the international breaks potentially have not helped us with that disruption of the players kind of feeling good about themselves, and the Motherwell game as well wasn't a great performance, and it seems like it is. Your Matt O'Reilly, I thought he's been off it for a while now, a couple of games. Juranovic as well. So yeah, I'm getting concerned. I do think we need now a big result and performance at the weekend, just to lift the mood and the feeling amongst both fans and obviously with the players as well. They'll know that they're not hitting the heights as earlier in the season. And no, we're not expecting every game to be the way it was when we're beating Dundee United 9-0 and Kilmarnock 5-0, Rangers 4-0. We understand that there's going to be difficult games in the season. So the Motherwell one, for example, was key just to get the win. But on the back of 3 or 4, of performances where we've not been at our best and players have been off it, I think St Johnstone is a big one now, where you'd like to see us hit the heights again of a good performance and result. So that's my feeling on that one. I don't know how you feel, but it does seem like it's dragged on a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking for something against St Johnstone. Not going to be an easy game though. Again, I think they could make it difficult for us. We're going into it without Cal McGregor because he's suspended. Never mind his injury. The only kind of saving grace for that is that they're playing this midweek. I think they're playing Kilmarnock tonight. Yeah. So they've got a short turnaround in games as well. So we've not been their main focus all week, which could play into our hands a bit. I mean, obviously it's a game you would expect to go in and get a win, and hopefully we can kind of find our swagger a little bit ahead of the Leipzig coming back to Glasgow on our own patch. I think we'll leave it about there, Asim. I'm sure Hamish will have a lot to say about this game. As I said, he was in the Red Bull Arena tonight, watching that match, so he'll be back tomorrow, internet permitting and whatever's going on in Leipzig permitting and his travel plans. If not, he will definitely be back on Friday ahead of the game against St Johnstone. So be interesting to hear his thoughts on how the trip was. I spoke to him before he came on air, and he seemed a little bit even more despondent and perhaps a little bit more angry than me and you asked him. So we'll see how he's feeling with it, or how he kind of is, how he sleeps on it, shall we say? Because I know Hamish is often one for a big reaction in the first instance, and then taking a bit of a cooler heads prevail stance. But if you're travelling over to Europe and you're watching the team, you want to see them do well, and I'm sure he'll be frustrated with that. Interested to kind of hear about the vibe in the stadium, with that VAR chalk off when we're almost celebrating and immediately got the sucker punch of them scoring. I wonder if that just sucked everything out of
Yeah.
the support as well as the team, and whether there's some kind of link there. But as I say, we'll be hearing from him later in the week. We'll have reaction to the St Johnstone game as well. We'll be building up to that. How are you this week, Asim? Are you just going to put your head down and forget about Celtic for a few days? Or are you going to be right up for this St Johnstone one?
It's very raw, as you said. Like straight after it, it's difficult because you're frustrated. I think we'll obviously digest it all. We'll see what Andrew's got to say. It's always good to hear his take on things because he's usually pretty honest and frank. So you're not going to get any. He's not going to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. So he'll say it how it is. Um, Football can change very quickly, John. I think it's just been a difficult couple of weeks. We were all on such a high. I think if we can win well on Saturday, I think it's like as you mentioned, it's a big game. Get back in the kind of feel good factor, and then the sooner as it gets closer to next week, everyone will be up for it again. I think right now people are probably feeling a bit down about our chances, and even that game, probably thinking, right, okay. But once the weekend's out of the way, I think we'll all be looking forward again, and the group is there for us still. Whether it's third or second place, we're still well in this. We've got two of our home games now in the most winnable games. It's not going to be easy, but we know that we can pull off a big performance, and that's what we're hoping for. So yeah, I'll watch the rest of the games tonight and try and calm down a bit.
The voice of reason, as always, Asim. I think we tried on this show to kind of find a blend between reflecting our honest disappointment with how tonight went, but also trying to offer a little bit of perspective, because I don't want to come here and totally gloss over what tonight was for me, because personally feeling pretty down about it, and I know other people are frustrated as well. But at the same time, you've when you're doing this, you've kind of often got to find a way forward. It can't just be all about slating players and the manager, etc. I think there is issues with certain areas of the team, and the manager will be looking at it. And I think, as I said, like, the first person to take responsibility for an error tonight will be Joe Hart. He won't be pleased with that at all, and we will hopefully see some sort of response from the team. But for now, on 6-7 Hail Hail, thanks Asim for joining us. Thanks everyone else for joining us live, or if you're checking out the archive of this and want to leave a comment below and slate all our opinions, feel free. That's what it's there for. And before too long, Hamish will be back on the channel and guiding you through another big week of Celtic action. Thanks very much, everyone.